Hi, I'm delighted to introduce you to the new, exciting second edition of English ID. If your learners speak Spanish or Portuguese, this course was written specifically for them. And of course, it was written for you too, the busy Latin American English teacher. Indeed, English ID is the first, and still I believe the only, 4-level adult and young adult course especially designed with 3 things in mind. Firstly, to build on the advantages that Spanish and Portuguese speakers have when it comes to learning English. Secondly, to give them the specific help they need with their greatest difficulties: listening, speaking, pronunciation, writing and spelling. And the third key objective is to develop fluency more quickly. Spanish and Portuguese speakers really should be learning A1 and then A2 English faster than most learners around the world. English ID provides the right balance of material to achieve this. So how exactly does English ID accelerate fluency? Well, it does this in a number of ways, which I will be showing you. Spanish and Portuguese speakers have really significant advantages over other learners. They can understand sophisticated vocabulary earlier and read texts well above standard international levels. They can recognize and use hundreds of words from day one, especially when helped with word stress. They can very quickly express a lot in an English which is globally comprehensible. Of course, they will make errors and won't sound like native speakers. But the vast majority of English users are non-native anyway, and they are able to get meaningful messages across faster than most other learners. They are familiar with most English sounds, and they share a lot of grammar: subject, verb, object, parts of speech, affixes, and so on. The huge advantage with monolingual classes is that you can greatly improve teaching and accelerate learning by anticipating typical difficulties and errors caused by own language transfer. Indeed, it's the most logical place to start when planning any class for monolingual groups whose language you know. Uniquely, English ID offers a syllabus of common mistakes. Every lesson anticipates the typical errors that learners will make when they translate from Spanish or Portuguese in order to help them to avoid doing so. So, by studying the common mistakes before the lesson, or during the lesson, or after the lesson to revise, they can avoid making these mistakes and so get accurate more quickly. Our syllabus has 110 common mistakes just in level 1 alone. And the best thing is, we are showing students what would happen if they translate without using a single word of their own language. They make the connection in their heads, but not their mouths. Simple. Here are some more examples. Students read and compare mentally what would happen if they translated directly from their own language. They notice the differences, what to avoid, and can start to use the correct form immediately, all in their heads. No need to say a word in Spanish or Portuguese. Simple. In teen and adult learning, linguistic experts concur that translation is inevitable. Learners work from L1 to L2, mentally translating virtually all new or complex items until at least a C1 level. To ignore this inevitable process or pretend it isn't happening just slows down the learning process, especially with monolingual classes. Contrast and co-construction of new and existing knowledge are a really valuable learning resource, and to deny these processes seriously limits our pedagogy. Sharing learners' mother tongue is a teacher's strength, something to celebrate and exploit, not a weakness. Our goal is to create successful language switchers, not just try to turn them into native speakers. Translation and mediating between languages are vital contemporary global skills. Mediation and translating back and forth between languages is one of the best ways to help students to notice and to remember effectively, and to learn more efficiently. So let's get the seeking of equivalence and own language contrast done at the best time, initially, when each individual is struggling to comprehend, and in the best way, placing the language alongside their own, translating mentally but not verbally, so the class can make the connection but remain in English. Indeed, doing this earlier actually reduces the need to speak their own language at all. There's a common myth that if you refer to their own language, you all end up speaking it a lot in class. But teaching this way actually reduces the amount of Spanish or Portuguese spoken in class. I recommend that you put the common mistakes on the board, corrected at the beginning of lessons, so as they enter class, students immediately see the problems that translations would bring and the solutions. It's a wonderful way to contextualize your lesson aims without having to speak a word of their language. In the second edition, we have common mistakes on student book pages every lesson, then revisited and expanded in the review lessons and as digital extra practice activities on the platform. Spanish and Portuguese are two of the 12 most similar languages to English. Not only is a lot of the grammar very similar and many of the sounds similar, but the really big key similarity is lexis. There are literally hundreds, indeed thousands of cognates, words which are recognizably similar, the same or almost the same in all three languages. We all know about the famous false friends, but cognates are true friends and outnumber false cognates by over 9 to 1. That's 9 friends for every false one, a massive advantage which is often overlooked. Did you know over 50% of English comes from Latin, which is a gift for our learners and their big advantage. So, if you're learning English as a Spanish or Portuguese speaker, happy Christmas. Enjoy the gifts. English for you should be a hill and not a mountain. In English ID, to embrace this, we don't edit out cognates from text, but deliberately keep them in. For example, look at these texts from the very first unit of English ID starter level, absolute beginners. Incredible, flexible, receptive, in effect, collection, Latin-based, adore, expression, imagine, for example, splendid, transcends. At the beginning of A1, no international course book would ever include all these words. Teachers would simply reject it as being the wrong level. But it's highly motivating for our Latin American learners. Or this text from level 1, unit 4, so early in A1 level. Century, success, modern, certain, abilities, essential, no particular order, efficiently, directions, basics, appropriately, impression. The common European framework largely ignores cognates and how much easier learning English can be for Romance language speakers. English courses for the world, based on native speaker frequency, offer one route for all and are often too generalized, especially for monolingual classes. Neither approach specifically helps our learners speak English as a lingua franca as soon as possible. There are many more native speakers of Romance languages than of English, so promoting these forms must help with global language mediation, as so many of them will be familiar and recognizable across many languages. We should celebrate similarity, not edit out cognates. They're gifts, our learners' biggest advantage. In any A1 level international course, you won't be given access to words like these, nor the chance to use them, because they're too difficult for most nationalities. But we're not teaching most nationalities. We're teaching Spanish and Portuguese speakers, and this is their true strength. For our students, most of these words are just, well, Happy Christmas. It's their key advantage, and we really ought to be exploiting and celebrating it, and so should they. Or this first lesson of Level 1. Look at the nationalities we make available. Brazilian, Mexican, Peruvian, Argentinian, Colombian. It's so obviously North and South America oriented. Students know immediately it's for them. They are shown examples and a word stress suffix rule which enables them to produce all 35 key Latin American nationalities immediately if they want to. Cognates and core vocabulary are also taught through an integrated picture dictionary. It's integrated and contextualized, not a separate section at the back of the book, so you don't have to flick back and forth to use it. English ID's picture dictionary teaches over 400 words per level, and this language is tested every 2 units as the first exercise in every review lesson. Students cover the words and test themselves to revise and memorize both spelling and pronunciation without the need for translation. And because we know the equivalents in their language, illustrations and glossaries are only provided for unfamiliar words and for false cognates, not for true cognates, saving both space and time. So, our inclusion of cognates means you get richer texts, more authentic language, and learners have access to many words which are normally hidden in international courses. These words, of course, which they can use confidently because they know the meaning and they only need help with pronunciation. This obviously leads to much more fluency and much greater ability to express a broader range of ideas more quickly. We all know that pronunciation is one of Spanish and Portuguese learners' biggest problems with English. So, in English ID, all new polysyllabic words have the stress highlighted in pink. And this is a great expression of syllabus, both for students and for teachers. If a word hasn't been seen before, it's pink. If not, they have seen it and they ought to be able to try to guess its pronunciation. This really facilitates autonomous learning. They can learn the words and try to pronounce the words both in and out of class. And they are able to guess and to extrapolate all kinds of suffix patterns, for example, which are normally hidden until much later. Suffixes are a key strength for Spanish and Portuguese speakers. In the audio script at the back of the book, you'll see too that we have 2 or 3 notice activities. Again, unique to English ID, we give real help with the phonology of listening. We all know that listening, deciphering words and the meaning, is the biggest problem at the start of language learning. Every time you ask students to look at the audio script, sometimes 2 or even 3 times in one lesson in English ID, you will find a specific activity in colour to help with a key element of pronunciation and spelling too. And they are all relevant, unlike the pronunciation in international books which are written for the world. Many of the sounds which they practice are irrelevant for our students, so you end up skipping them, which is poor value and sends the wrong messages to our students, which is namely that pronunciation is not important. when we know that it really is one, if not the, biggest problem for Spanish speakers in particular. There are 84 notice activities in level 1, all of them done for you, so students can listen again and do them at home if you don't have time in class. English ID also includes a usual sounds and spelling chart, picture pairs illustrating the 40 sounds of American English. Uniquely, it highlights what's easy to celebrate and what's difficult to focus on and to practice more. And below the chart, students are shown the main spelling patterns for each sound. How much help does your current book really give with spelling? English ID 2nd edition has significantly increased and improved a feature which both students and teachers love: the songlines. Every lesson now has an extract from a famous authentic song. There are 65 songs in every level. That's 260 song extracts in the 4 levels of English ID. These are designed to hook language. The songline provides a fun puzzle every lesson where the students have to find the link to language in the lesson. Could be to the topic, to the lexis, or to the grammar. It's also a way to really help students to remember the language, and it's a great motivator as students see they already know it and can sometimes even sing it. How often do your students sing with your current course book? And of course, if they don't know or don't like the songlines that we offer, they can Google and find and suggest an alternative of their own, which they do like. So it's an organic feature to that extent. Using regular short extracts from a variety of songs is highly motivating and very memorable. It's also far more realistic in terms of lesson time than trying to regularly use whole songs, which many learners may not even like, nor wish to listen to anyway. Besides, learners can easily find and listen to the rest of the song outside class if they want to, and researching songlines is actually an extremely motivating homework. Plus, we have a Spotify playlist, so you and your classes can access and hear all the complete songs in one place too. Just search for Paul Seligson's ID playlists on Spotify. 2 more special features are our question title syllabus and the Make It Personal activities at the end of every phase. Both features address each student directly as a learner. Each lesson title is a question which students can try to answer at the start of class and then go back again at the end of the lesson and answer them better. So it's a short task each time, which forms a kind of loop input. Try, then learn, then loop back and try again, and celebrate doing it better as a result of the lesson. The 60-question lesson title syllabus serves as a useful ready-made warmer too. You can use the map of the book for a quick speaking activity with students asking and answering in pairs whenever you need an instant speaking or revision activity. And it's an accessible expression of the Common European Framework too, much easier and more useful to memorize than simple lists of words. If students learn to ask and answer all of these questions, they will easily pass any oral test. So it's a neat expression of syllabus for each level too. Every phase of every lesson ends Make It Personal. Again, addressing the learner directly, we set them a structured, personalized, communicative speaking task. Learners use the language they've just learned in a personal context to make it more relevant and more memorable. There are no less than 166 of these Make It Personal tasks in level 1 alone. By talking about themselves with confidence, students learn to believe in their English-speaking selves, and so to like their new English identity, hence the name, English ID. English ID has all the support components you'd expect from a really high-quality English course, both paper and e-workbooks, which are trackable. The dedicated Richmond Learning Platform, which includes downloadable audio, authentic video and scripted video for every unit, plus additional extra practice activities for all the main language points of units, as well as for pronunciation, common mistakes and speaking, all linked to the Markbook. The Richmond Test Manager with both interactive and printable tests. And of course, the Teacher's Book, which is now interleaved to make it much easier for you to plan and use it in class. It has special notes every lesson in pink for Spanish and Portuguese speakers, plus full notes at the back of the book for the songs. The introduction explains English ID's unique methodology, and in the second edition we have supplemented the Teacher's Book with loads and loads of extra photocopyable activities too, activities for grammar, vocabulary and role play for every unit. So, English ID gives you and your learners fluency through cognates, through lots and lots of practice, and 166 Make It Personal activities. And English ID gives you accuracy through 110 common mistakes, a solid grammar spine. At the back of the book we have 20 pages of grammar and of course more pronunciation and importantly more relevant pronunciation work than any international course. Plus it has a process writing syllabus which anticipates their main difficulties too. English ID and Identities 1 and 2. Together this forms a complete 6-level course from A1 to a strong C1 level, tailored specifically for Latin America, available both in American and British English versions. Your current coursebook may be wonderful, but it was written for the world, not for your students, which means that you have to do a lot of skipping and supplementing, which can be frustrating both for you and your students, as well as a lot of extra work. Above all, with English ID, you get relevance and respect for what students already know from their mother tongue. English ID is exclusively for students here in Latin America. Give it a try and you'll notice the difference. Thank you very much.